No. That's right. Don't use that bit.
So hello everyone, welcome to a very special episode of Chaplin Talks, because we are at Glyndebourne. Believe it or not, they're going to be showing City Lights with a live orchestra, so I'm going to take you behind the scenes and show you everything. We're going to meet a few people along the way, so join me for this new episode. I am here with Gus Christie.
That's right.
How are you doing, all right?
I'm very well.
So, Glyndebourne is an amazing, beautiful place. Tell us a little bit about the history, how it all got started.
Well, we're sitting here in the organ room, which was 100 years old last year. My grandfather built this room in 1920, and it is where music at Glyndebourne began, really, in this room. And he would put on scenes from different operas, just scenes, not full-scale operas. And he'd have a few professional singers and a few amateur singers. And he would have an audience of his local friends. And it was just a hobby. And it was a sort of, and it was something he loved. And that's where he met his wife, who was an opera singer. Audrey Mildmay. And he was a 50-year-old bachelor at the time, and he took her upstairs to his bedroom and said, "This is where we'll be sleeping when we're married." So then he pursued her, and he succeeded in wooing her, and they got married. And then he wanted to actually. She was an opera singer. He didn't want her to go and sing around the world all the time, so he wanted to extend this room.
Okay. And
she persuaded him, for God's sake, John, if you're going to spend all that money, do the thing properly. And it was a sort of famous line. So he built her a theatre in behind this organ here, in what was the kitchen garden.
Okay.
Back in the early 1930s, a 300-seater initially. And he owned a local building company, Ringmer Building Works, who built it.
Okay.
And she sang the role of Susanna in The First Marriage of Figaro in 1934.
Oh, really?
Which is when it all began, yeah.
That's incredible.
Yeah. And he was very lucky to get the wonderful artistic director, Karl Ebert, and a music director, Fritz Busch, who were fleeing from Nazi Germany at the time.
Okay.
Two guys who were at the top of their game, and they set the artistic and musical standards from the beginning, to which we still aspire.
Oh, wow.
So that was 87 years ago.
And obviously the passion continues with you as well.
Yeah, it does. I mean, my dad took over in the early 60s, because John Christie died in 1962. So my dad ran it for 40 years, and he then knocked down his dad's theatre, which had expanded to seat about 850 people by the time it was knocked down by my dad in the early 90s. And then he rebuilt the existing theatre, which is 1,250 seats. So it's sort of a 50% increase, because You know, I mean, it was a crazy idea to build an opera house in the middle of the Sussex countryside, but it worked. And you know, now it's a world famous international opera festival.
Yeah, exactly. I was going to say, and you can see why, because the land and the gardens, everything is just so beautiful. You got the views. I can see why people would want to come here. So this is the first time you're screening a film with live orchestra, isn't it?
Well, it's a reaction to the pandemic. Really, is that, I mean, we've had to adapt in these last 2 years.
Yeah.
We built stages out in the gardens last year and performed outside. We've been doing whatever we can do. So this year we're currently on our annual tour, which we do every autumn. We go around the country with 2 or 3 operas.
Okay.
And so we have a week in each venue, and one of the venues, they're all struggling to get back on their feet because of the pandemic. And so we're not going to one of the venues, which meant coming back here. And then we thought, what can we do back here? And we thought, well, why don't we do City Lights and have our touring orchestra play the score live in front of it, which it's a novel idea, but I think I'm looking forward to it.
So Gus, I can't thank you enough.
Pleasure.
It's a real pleasure. I cannot wait to see the show.
Great. Well, nice to meet you, and
Nice to meet you.
look forward to it.
Yes,
Yeah.
thank you very much.
Okay.
So I am now here in the auditorium with the conductor for City Lights at Glyndebourne, Jamie Phillips. Jamie, how are you doing?
Very well. It's a big pleasure to meet you and to be here and work on this amazing score.
Oh yeah, no. Well, thank you for doing it. I'm sure. One of the questions I've been dying to ask you is, how many times have you watched City Lights now?
Oh gosh. I mean, all the way through, probably half a dozen, but I reckon if I were to add up the number of times I've watched each scene individually, I think it must be the film I've now seen more than any other film in history. I certainly feel very, very familiar with every single gesture for the whole score.
Okay, good. So it's going to stay ingrained.
I think so. Yeah, hard to forget.
So tell us a little bit about your background. What sort of, because do you come from more of the operatic side of?
No, not at all. So, I mean, I was a trumpet player by training. So I played in a lot of different styles of music. I played in a lot of symphony orchestras, but also jazz bands, swing bands, that sort of thing.
Oh, really?
I played in some brass bands as well. So I've had an interesting kind of upbringing in terms of the different genres of music I've worked in. Most of my conducting has been what you would describe as classical symphonic music. So very little in the opera house, but mostly in the concert hall. But I've tried as much as possible to work on music from all different periods of history. So everything from about, 1650 up to the present day. So no real sort of specialism in one area.
Oh, is that right? Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. And so how is it working on to a live film? Because obviously you can't drift.
Not at all.
So how is that? Is this your first time doing
it? It is indeed. I mean, I've done various things over the years where There have been sort of short video clips synchronized with orchestra where you have to work within the rough parameters of the tempo that is indicated. But this is a whole new ball game. I was telling the orchestra first thing this morning, actually, just how many cues there are on every single page, and actually to try and find a way to be musical within the parameters that you have is a real art, actually. I'm not for 1 minute going to pretend I've acquired it in the process of preparing for this, but actually just to feel your way through that. And whilst rehearsing it with the video this morning, with the orchestra, I just found myself defaulting to my usual desire to be quite expansive, or to push where you've got a recapitulation of something. So you think, okay, this time we'll just move it forward. It doesn't work like that. It does not work like that. And I think it's the fact that the music is so totally gorgeous all the way through, that you feel like you want to indulge a bit. And as I say, the art is to find the musicality where you can, within the constraints of tempo.
Yeah. Do you, or did you know much about my grandfather before doing this? Do you know much about his music?
I mean, I saw and heard a lot of his films when I was growing up in Birmingham. So the CBSO, the Symphony Orchestra in Birmingham, where I grew up, they did many silent films with orchestra and film, not only from your grandfather, but some other great filmmakers as well. So I heard all sorts of things, and I was just always so moved and impressed. I mean, I'm talking like from the age of, I don't know, 6 or 7, I was hearing this stuff. And I suppose at that time I didn't realise what a challenge it was, and you just soak up this atmosphere and you just enjoy it for everything it's worth. But I saw several of the films when I was growing up, and I do remember this one as well. So this
great.
Yeah.
And because he wrote all the music as well to this stuff.
Of course, yeah.
And I don't know if you know as well that he was completely self-taught on different instruments.
Yeah.
He didn't really know how to. He didn't learn to play anything. So he played violin, bit of piano, and a lot of the time he would just sit there and come up with melodies, and there'd be someone next to him, kind of writing everything down as it went along. It's quite.
I mean, it's inspired. I mean, to what extent the actual orchestration is by your grandfather is, I think we're not 100% certain. I mean, the arranger did a lot of the bulking out.
Exactly.
But the tunes are just stunning.
Yeah.
The melodies are incredible. I love the waltzes, for example. I think that they're so natural. They're really inspired. Mm-hmm. They're really, really gorgeous. I have to say, though, talking about the waltzes, they are the hardest moments of synchronization, because they're so. I mean, you beat one in a bar for every three beats. Yada, I mean, there's a gorgeous one. It's 54 beats per minute, which is slow. And just to try and figure that out. But some of the tunes are absolutely gorgeous. They're so stunning.
Yeah, no, he was really amazing at that stuff. When you look at the pages of these compositions, would you say it was like different to how someone would write a piece?
I don't think so.
No.
In all honesty, I don't know whether that's the right or the wrong answer, but actually I find it just very, very natural.
Yeah,
it seems extremely instinctive, incredibly natural, and of course it has to reflect what's on the screen in terms of the emotions. I was talking about leitmotifs, in the way that Wagner pioneered the idea of a certain little melody or a mood being incarnated by a certain thing that happens in the orchestra. It seems very similar to me. I mean, there's recurring themes.
Yes.
I think by about 20 minutes into the score, you've heard about 80% of the themes you're going to hear. Exactly. But they come in all different keys and all different tempi. And you just have the feeling that this is revolutionary. This is absolutely revolutionary. The idea that you would be able to reflect the mood on screen just by a certain tonality or a certain tempo. It's fantastic.
Do you have a favorite scene or something that you're looking forward to, or something that you find very challenging?
Yeah. I'll start with the challenging bits. The boxing match is it's just so difficult. It's one speed for the whole thing. Well, there's 2 rounds to the boxing match. The first round is 126 beats per minute. Okay. The second round, which comes about 20 seconds later, is 120 beats per minute. And that 6 beats per minute difference makes an enormous difference over the duration of, I don't know, a 3-minute boxing match. And you are absolutely locked in. So that's very, very challenging. I really like the dance music. I think it's absolutely sensational. the scene where the spaghetti and the streamers get mucked
Yes.
up quite near the beginning. It's just, it's totally gorgeous. I love it. Absolutely love it.
And do you see yourself doing more stuff like this then in the future?
I would really like to. I have to be honest, it takes a hell of a lot of preparation.
I would imagine so.
And I think, in all honesty, I've spent more time per page of the score preparing this than I have anything in my life. I mean,
really?
This makes Marlon look like ABC. It really does. Not in terms of the complexity of the notes, but just you have to have an awareness of every single bar and what's happening. I mean, scrawled all over my score is, it's okay to be too fast here. It's do not be behind here.
Just do not be behind.
Yeah. But both
So
ways.
funny. That's so
Both
funny.
ways. And it's really interesting seeing the markings of previous conductors who've done the piece, actually, to see what their pearls of wisdom from previous incarnations of it are.
Amazing. So I'm actually coming on Saturday.
Fantastic.
So I'll be seeing it. But I've seen some of this done before, but never this is such a beautiful venue.
Yeah,
So I'm really, really looking forward to it.
me too. Me too.
Jamie, can't thank you
It's a
enough.
pleasure.
Thank you so much.
You're
Thank
very
you.
welcome.